Hello there, this is Anne-Marie Brogue, and this is my first edition of watching the first episode of X-Men Evolution series known as Strategy X. And as you see here, we're at a football game with BHS, or otherwise known as Bayville High. We're about to see what the guys at Bayville High do best: football. Good old red and gold. I have a high school nearby that's actually blue and gold. You know. Anyway. See, you got a touchdown there. Okay, this is one of the students, Jean Grey there. And there's the other main character, Scott Summers. Oh, another main character there, Todd Talensky, who's just pickpocketed assistant coach there, and he just throws away the wallet.
Hey, coach, could we be excused for a second?
And of course, this shows the coach's total disregard of these football guys, you know. Anyway, now Scott just lost his money. Your cash? That was just like a quarter or something, you know. But anyway, of course, he notices that something is going on. And one thing, why wouldn't anyone call the cops? I'm sorry, but then again, you probably don't want someone to get in trouble for that. But anyway, as you see, Duncan there is just, caught Toad. Now, despite Toad's power, I might as well just reveal it already. Of course, we already know that his powers are, being a Toad and everything.
How about we have him give back the cash? No harm done.
Yeah, you see there?
Here's the money. What do you care about this scuzzo, Summers? Not much.
Now, that's the only thing. I think Duncan is stupid for wasting his time with that guy. I mean, why would a guy like him care less about what some scuzzo like him, like that? But as you see, Scott was tempted to use his powers, but because of his training, he, of course, avoided that. He doesn't want to expose himself. And of course, now Duck is mad for making him lose Todd Talensky and for embarrassing him in front of the boys. And then they go in a fist fight, then Jean pops in, and Jean thinks it's automatically Scott's fault. But then again, he hits the beam and the glasses fall off, and then the blast comes and there's a mushroom cloud and everyone sees that, and then there's Jean's dark face. Okay, now that's the beginning of the first episode. And now we go into the intro. I love this intro. Now, I remember when I first saw this is when I first became, introduced to the main X-Men. And it just really struck me as interesting because I didn't really know these people at all before. And I thought they were teenagers, but later I found out they were just, they were just basing off of the premises if they were teenagers. And as you see, and in some cases they took advantage of that and they added a character named Spike. The Spike is technically not in the comics at all. At least I don't think. And as you see here, we were introduced to all the characters before they even come into their individual episodes. Now, as you saw, we already saw Jean Grey and Scott. Of course, Jean Grey doesn't really have a name per se, a superhero name, but Scott Summers does. His name is Cyclops, of course, and the reason behind that is more because of his, the eyepiece he uses to project his laser blast, and it looks like he has one eye, so that's the reason why they call him Cyclops, which I think is really ingenious, actually. And as you see back there, Jean displayed her power, and her power is telekinesis, and along with telepathy. Though we don't really see her use that much in the series. We just mostly see her power of telekinesis. And now we're here introduced to another character, Charles Xavier, whose main power is telepathy, which includes altering minds, like altering the mind of that policeman there. Now, this character, Duncan Matthews. I'm not really sure much about him. I don't know if he was in the comics or what, but I better do some research on that. Anyway, of course, there's Toad thanking, Scott for what he did. And, of course, Scott's just ticked that he just almost blown his cover. And Toad does that. That's the reason why I don't really like Toad. But, anyway, now you see that now here we're introduced to Storm, also known as Aurora Monroe, and, of course, Professor Charles Xavier. Now, of course, Aurora Monroe's power, of course, obviously relates to her name, Storm. And there we have a character which I'll introduce later. This one, I might as well just tell you who it is, since we're not going to see him for very much in this episode, except at the very ending. This, of course, is Wolverine. Now, with him, I like this version. This is the first version I more saw of him, I think, other than Hugh Jackson, because I watched the X-Men movies before I watched anything else. It was because of watching the X-Men movies that I was introduced to this through YouTube, and of course and this is the version I've more got used to seeing. Because he was a lot more milder than the other versions I've seen him in. X-Men TDS and the Wolverine, the X-Men, they make him out to be more, vicious and condescending and crass. And just a non-personality. Of course, now we're introduced to Sabretooth, which will be shown later in more depth in X-Impulse. Don't worry, Scott. She's just... give the girl time. I mean, seriously, at my school... girls take a long time to even just get out of the locker room for gym. I mean, seriously, my teacher yelled at my other fellow girl classmates just because they took too long in the gym class. I mean, seriously, I'm out even before the guys are, which shows that girls can have ample time to do it, but they just can't help themselves. Anyway, here, now we're introduced to the other addition to the team. Because as of now, there's only 2 X-Men, both Scott and Jean. Which I find interesting. It's not much of an institute, but And of course, now here's the discussion the professor has about what happened last night.